So, Luka Doncic, one of the best players in the world, without doubt. Obviously, one of the best players in the world. But this season, he's not started off the greatest. Look, you can look at his stats and see 28 points, 7 boards, 7 assists, and you're like, no, he's playing well. By his standard, he's not. And also, he's been horrendous in the clutch. He's been absolutely horrendous in the clutch. And one thing is very obvious watching the guy play, he's still injured. Whatever injury he had in the playoffs last year, his knees are still bleeding every single game. His knees just bleed. He has knee damage. Like, he has some sort of damage in his knee, which is why he's missing games. And the reality of the situation is that he's probably not going to be right this season, health-wise. But that does not matter. The Mavs fans have already turned on Luka Doncic. I've seen so many posts now talking about how the Mavs fans, Mavs fans saying trade Luka Doncic, saying, you know, we want Luka gone, and especially when last night we saw them beat the Thunder without Luka. It's all now. This team is better without Luka. This team, if they want to win, they need to go and trade Luka. Trade Luka while his value is high. And again, it's a vocal minority of Mavs fans. But it is the dumbest thing I think I have ever heard. They made the finals last year. I repeat, they made the finals last year. And the only reason they made the finals last year was because a hobbled Luka dragged them to the finals. Luka could barely move in the playoffs. And he still was putting up 30, 40 in games. He was still hitting game winners over Rudy Gobert. The man couldn't move, and he was still doing that. He was injured. Whereas you've seen other quote-unquote stars. And I'm not talking about guys with legitimate injuries. You've seen quote-unquote stars when they're like, anytime there's even a minor issue, it's, I'm going to sit for all these games. I'm going to just sit for these games. You know what? The playoffs doesn't really matter that much. You know, I could play. I'm choosing not to. It's so common. It's so common, the amount of players that could play and are choosing not to. And in Luka Doncic, the guy who was putting his body on the line for the Dallas Mavericks, like, he was injured he's injured this season. He's injured last season. It's like, oh, he plays. That's not an excuse. Would you rather him not play? So I never understand that as a problem where it's like, okay, player hampered by injury tries to play on equals they shouldn't play. Player could probably play at 80%, and sits out. Well, they should have just played. Like, that's the logic. It's the same people that will argue both of those situations. But like, the guy 100% and 100% like has given everything. He's given everything for this team. And all of it being like, oh, you know, it's a weight issue, and it's like, even if he lost all the weight, the build he is, if he lost all the weight, he'd lose his strength. The reality is he's hurt. We've seen Luka heavier than he is right now and be able to move. We've seen a much heavier version of Luka than the modern version of Luka be actually able to move way quicker than this, play better defense than this, and the reality situation is the guy's playing hurt. And for Mavs fans, I don't think some of them realize, and again, it's a small minority, that without Luka Doncic, this Dallas Mavericks team wins nothing. And by nothing, I mean they don't even make the play-in. Like, Mavs are going to make the play-in. The Mavs might get the 5th, 6th seed in the playoffs. That's probably what I expect them to be. And we saw from last year, they were the 5th seed and they made the finals. Seeding does not matter anymore in the playoffs. With the fact that crowds are as dead as they are, there's no really good crowds in the NBA anymore. Crowds are as dead as they are. The travel is not that big of a difference or big of a deal because they all have unbelievably comfortable flights. There's enough time between games that they can rest. Home court advantage means zilch. It means zilch. How few Game 7s were there last year? Obviously, there was the 2 in the one day. Were they the only 2 Game 7s? The Nuggets and Timberwolves, and then the the Knicks and Pacers. I think they were the only 2 Game 7s. So, like, home court advantage only matters in Game 7. So getting into the playoffs, doesn't matter where you are, you're okay. You're okay. And that's what I think the Mavs are going to be trying to do. I think they're probably going to limit Luka's minutes. They're probably going to limit how much Luka plays. But like, to say he's any lower than the 5th best player in the world is crazy. But now you've got Mavs fans that just because he's played a couple of bad games down the clutch that are saying trade him, build around Kyrie. And it's like, man, we have seen what Kyrie as a number 1 option gets you. And it's not good. It's not good. Like, Kyrie Irving, outside of Cleveland 2016, has been a big time, I'm not going to say choker, but underperformer. Like, he was bad in the playoffs for Boston. He was iffy-ish in the playoffs for Brooklyn. To be fair, like, he was injured in one of them, and then he wasn't great against the Celtics. He had one game, and that was really it. And then he was terrible in the finals last year. But for Dallas, if you're a Dallas fan, I get Luka can be frustrating. I get it. The body language can be a bit of a problem. It's not going to change. That's who Luka Doncic is. That's what you're going to get. The defensive effort situation, yeah, it's pretty iffy. But, like, the guy's injured and teams are putting him in every defensive action and he's still being expected to give you a 30-point triple-double every single night. Like, that's just, like, the problem is the expectation for Luka is MVP every single season. And not MVP level, literal MVP every single season. The fact that Luka Doncic did not win MVP last year is a travesty. The guy, they won 3 games less than the Nuggets. What did the guy average? Like 35, 8 and 9 or something? We'll never see anything. We'll never see anything. But yeah, it's just a mad situation. Like, to be fair, it is a vocal minority. It is making a video on Twitter opinions, which is a very small minority of fans. But you're seeing it more and more. Especially, this is like, it reminds me of back in the day when the Wizards, they would have like good stretches of play when John Wall wasn't there, and they were talking about how, we don't need John Wall. We're better without John Wall. We're statistically better without him. And then over a long period of time, when John Wall got injured, they went from one of the best teams in the East to terrible. So that's the problem, is you can win a couple of games without Luka Doncic. You can't make the playoffs without Luka Doncic. You can't win a playoff series without Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is by far the best player on the Dallas Mavericks. And if you think you're going to get anything by getting rid of Luka, if you're going to get anything even remotely comparable in terms of level, you're wrong, because there is the only players that are as good as Luka are basically untouchable from their teams, even if you gave Luka. So anyway, yeah, that is the video. We also have to forget the guy is 25 years old. He is 25, and he is one of the greatest 25-year-olds to ever play the sport of basketball up to this point.